I'm Alyssa, and today I'm talking about 10 films I didn't appreciate on the first viewing. And the majority of these films, I was just too young at the time to fully appreciate how artistic they were, what the story was, the way they were filmed, just all of that. I was too young to appreciate it. I was more concerned with watching, you know, Nicholas Sparks adaptations and vampire movies. And I didn't fully appreciate these films until I watched them just a couple of years ago, maybe even this year. So please keep your haterade to yourself. I was a very naive young woman who loved her vampires and her Nicholas Sparks adaptations. But I've since grown up and my cinematic tastes have evolved. So now I'm gonna list the 10 movies I didn't appreciate the first time, but now I freaking love. And by the way, these are in no particular order, so let's get started. First up is Inside Llewyn Davis. When I first saw this, I was just bored to tears. I didn't understand why this guy was so distraught. But when I watched it a second time years later, I loved this. I fell head over heels in love with this film. This is a Cullman brothers film. It stars Oscar Isaac, Carey Mulligan, Adam Driver, Justin Timberlake, just so many amazing actors and actresses. And it follows Llewyn Davis, played by Oscar Isaac, a musician who is trying to make a name for himself in the musical world but is struggling, and one day he accidentally lets his neighbor's cat out of his apartment and the cat is lost. He's trying to find this cat, and it just chronicles how he's struggling to get by every day. And you see how his relationships with his bandmates, his friends, his ex-girlfriend are all knotted and tangled, and how he has to fix these relationships or let these relationships go. And it's so much deeper than what I initially thought it was. It's very much a journey about self-discovery, but it also has an amazing soundtrack. I highly recommend you watch Inside Llewyn Davis because it is a masterpiece, and I was just an idiot for not appreciating it sooner. Now, second up is a movie a lot of people still don't like, and that is Blade Runner. And there is a caveat with this. It took me 4 times to actually enjoy this movie and 5 times to fall in love with it. The first time I watched it, I got the director's cut off Netflix, which, do not watch the director's cut. That's not the right cut to watch. And I did not enjoy the film at all. The second 2 times I tried watching it on the Sci-Fi Channel, which again, not the correct version to watch, and plus they cut out certain scenes. But the 4th time, I finally was smart enough to go on Netflix, get the final cut, which is the cut you need to watch, and I watched it, and I really liked it, but I wasn't head over heels in love with Blade Runner. But I was intrigued by it, and I really wanted to reach that level of love that so many people had for Blade Runner. So I then read Philip K. Dick's book that inspired the movie, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and that really opened my eyes and made me understand what the plot of the movie was. I watched it a 5th time, understood it then, and fell in love with it. And I love how this movie is so open to interpretation. I love how advanced it was and how it still holds up today. Harrison Ford is great as Rick Deckard, and Rutger Hauer as Roy Batty was just, so good. Like tears in rain, time to die. There's so many iconic moments in this film, and this film has influenced so many science fiction films since its release. It's just such a milestone, and I mean, we got Blade Runner 2049 from it, which bombed at the box office, but guys, Blade Runner 2049 is a masterpiece. It is just as good as Blade Runner, so we have amazing science fiction films due to this film, and even if you watched this once and you hated it, try giving it another shot. It took me 5 times to fully fall in love with it, but I would recommend watching the final cut, perhaps reading the novella that the movie is based on, and then just going in with an open mind, open eyes, full attention, and watching it and absorbing it and just letting it simmer and just thinking about it after you watch it, and I think you might enjoy it a little more, or you might not, because it is a very divisive film, but I love it now. Now the next one up, if you know me, you're going to probably be shocked by this, but that's Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope. I remember my uncle showing this to me when I was a very young kid, and I just didn't get the hype for it. And when they entered the Mos Eisley Cantina, I remember being scared to death because all these creatures looked super scary to me, and I made my uncle eject the tape, and for the longest time I thought I hated Star Wars. Until The Force Awakens came out, and I saw it and was amazed by how great it was. I watched the original trilogy, fell in love with it, but Star Wars Episode 4: A New Hope is where it all begins, and it holds up today so well. It kickstarts the whole story, and I don't know why I didn't enjoy it as a kid. Probably because I was too scarred by the citizens at the Mos Eisley Cantina, honestly. But also because as a kid, sometimes you don't get the deeper messages in films, and I definitely wouldn't have picked up on some of the stuff that I've picked up now if I saw Star Wars and was just a fan of it as a child. The next one up is Mud. This is a film by Jeff Nichols and stars Matthew McConaughey and Reese Witherspoon. And when I first watched it, I was bored to tears. A few years later, I watched it because I was trying to go through all of Jeff Nichols' filmography and fell in love with it. Matthew McConaughey is fantastic as the titular Mud. The story revolves around two young boys who discover Mud in the middle of the forest. He's living in his boat, and he just really wants to get back the love of his life, Juniper, played by Reese Witherspoon. It's a very heartwarming, touching film with themes about family, self-discovery, if people are who they say they are. And it's just so well done. Jeff Nichols is a fantastic director. He knows what he's doing. He's such an underrated director. And Matthew McConaughey, again, this is one of his most underrated roles. The next film up is The Impossible. Now this I actually enjoyed for a little bit when I first saw it, until there's a scene in a hospital where people are throwing up black tendrils because this is based off the tsunami that hit Thailand in 2004, I believe. And I had to stop the film because I am emetophobic, not as much as I used to be, but at that time, anything involving vomit destroyed me. So that put me off that whole film for years. And then I finally rewatched it last year, and it's a masterpiece. And yes, there are some very hard to stomach moments. It is very realistic looking, it's gory, it's disturbing, not in a scary sense, but just in the fact that you see what happened, you see how horrible it was. But it also has messages of hope, and it has messages of strength and perseverance and love and doing what you have to save your family. And J.A. Bayona knows how to direct a smaller yet effects-driven film. And this is just so beautiful. And if you haven't seen it yet, please do yourself a favor and watch it if you have the stomach to handle it, because this is definitely not for the faint of heart or for the weak of stomach. But The Impossible is a really important film. Next up is Drive. Now I will say all of Nicholas Winding Refn's films are very divisive. He is a director that hides a lot of his messages beneath the images in his films. So the first time I watched Drive, I was like, what the hell's happening? I have no idea. I don't really care about this. It's very slow. The second time I watched it, I sat down with open eyes and really appreciated what was going on. I adored the aesthetic. I loved Ryan Gosling as the main character. It's just such a stylish movie. There are some very violent moments in the film, but they aren't violent for violence sake. They serve a purpose for the story. And it actually is a very emotional, family-oriented story beneath the images that it projects. So again, this won't be for everyone. Not everyone's going to love Drive. But if you can look beneath the images that Nicholas Winding Refn is showing you and see the message that is lying underneath the style and the violence, there's a really amazing film there. The next one up is District 9. I remember watching this with my dad at the movie theater when it came out, and I was the only kid there. And at that point, I wasn't into science fiction like I am now. I didn't know about apartheid really. And I just was like, it's just a movie about a guy turning into a giant shrimp, basically. Which, if you haven't seen the movie, I'm sorry, I kind of just spoiled it for you. District 9 is a science fiction masterpiece from Neil Blomkamp. It stars Charlton Copley, and it's filmed in a documentary style. And it focuses on this group of creatures called prawns in South Africa, and the government is trying to force them into a new location. And you see how this one man, after he interacts with some prawns, starts to feel a little iffy. It's a very well done film. It does feel like you're truly watching a documentary, and you sometimes forget you're not watching a documentary. The effects are incredible, and Charlton Copley just knocks it out of the park with his performance. And Neil Blomkamp made a name for himself with this film. So definitely as a child, I did not get the messages this film was imparting, but now as an adult, I can fully appreciate what District 9 is about. Appreciate the science fiction behind this story, appreciate how it is filmed, and just understand the messages it's conveying. Now the next one up, another surprise considering I like this kind of movie typically, that's Iron Man. When Iron Man came out in 2008, I wasn't into superheroes, and this movie took so long to get to the superhero portion that I lost interest about halfway through. But seeing it last year again, I really appreciated how Tony Stark became Iron Man and what he went through to build the suit, and how he had to adjust to being a superhero and not just a really stupidly wealthy person who's kind of a prick sometimes, but how he has to adjust to being a hero. It's the movie that kicked off the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe. It brought Jon Favreau and Robert Downey Jr. out of the Hollywood blacklist, basically. It is a really important film in the science fiction superhero genre. The next one up, I just recently rewatched a couple days ago as of the time of filming, but that is Sicario. Sicario, the first time I watched it, again, too young. I thought it was glacially slow and boring. I didn't appreciate the kind of film it was at that time. But now I see how it's about this woman played by Emily Blunt and her journey into being an FBI agent investigating these cartels, and how she has to deal with both Josh Brolin's character Matt Graver and Benicio del Toro's character, and how she interacts with them, how she's basically the only woman in this boys club, and also how bloody and violent and how cruel and sadistic these cartels can be. And it's a very eye-opening film. It's written by Taylor Sheridan, who would go on to write Hell or High Water and direct Wind River. And it's directed by Denis Villeneuve, who of course directed Blade Runner 2049, Arrival, etc. It's just a film that you have to be mature enough to appreciate. Now the last film isn't a case of me being too young to appreciate it, it's just because this movie is fucking weird. And that is Napoleon Dynamite. The first time I watched Napoleon Dynamite, as soon as it ended, I was like, what the ever-loving hell did I just watch? I didn't find it funny at all. I thought there was no story to it. The only thing I got from that movie was that Pedro was running for president, and the movie ends with a dance sequence that was admittedly awesome the first time I watched it. But for some reason, like with Blade Runner, I felt compelled to watch it again. And the second time I watched it, I started laughing at a few of the jokes. I started appreciating more about the film, and then on the third and fourth and fifth viewing, I started finding things funnier and funnier and funnier, and I started quoting lines from the film, and it just became this iconic comedy that is one of the rare comedies I actually like, because it takes some work to actually like this movie. So many people watch this once and hate it because, like I said, it doesn't really have a story. It's just about this teenager named Napoleon and his weird brother and a girl he befriends at school, and Pedro, who is running for president. But you see the bonds of family underneath this film. You see how everyone's trying to be accepted for who they are. And I mean, really, you're watching it for the funny moments, which you will grow to appreciate if you watch this more than once, trust me. So those are 10 films I didn't appreciate the first time I watched them, but now I love them. Let me know what movies you didn't appreciate but now you like in the comment box down below. If you liked the video, leave a like, and also make sure to share it if you liked it, because it helps my channel grow and makes me super duper happy. If you like this video, hit the subscribe button along with the notification bell so you'll be alerted whenever I upload a new video, and it'll appear in your sub box, and we'll all be super duper happy. If you'd like to follow me on social media sites, those are all listed in the description box down below. I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Peace and kisses. Bye.